taking me in. Take a look inside.
If taking you in is an option, I would much prefer that to the alternative.
This is Blade Runner 2049. Following in the footsteps of its 1982 predecessor, it was a box office failure that has since developed a reputation as one of the most important films of its generation. And then there's this, Blade Runner Black Lotus, the Blade Runner project no one seems to remember.
You aren't human. You're one of them. A replicant.
In the lead up to the release of Blade Runner 2049, multiple short films were produced, expanding the world of Blade Runner. The idea of expanding the tableau of a film's cinematic potential by giving the audience these little bite-sized glimpses into the expanded world of a franchise is a great idea, at least from a storytelling perspective. However, Alcone, the studio that brought the rights to the Blade Runner franchise, might have taken this idea a bit too far. It took them almost a decade to get 2049 off the ground, and by the time things were really coming together, they knew they needed to invest heavily. They announced something that seemed bulletproof. A Blade Runner anime. With the cyberpunk aesthetic obviously being deeply influenced by Japanese culture, this seemed like a slam dunk. They brought in stalwart anime directors Kinji Kamiyama and Shinji Aramaki to oversee the project. How could this not work? These are the directors of Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex and Appleseed Alpha. This was a match made in heaven. There's only one problem. It wasn't. The show was horrible.
I can't remember anything.
Memories are overrated. If you've lost yours, quit while you're ahead.
We follow an amnesiac replicant named L who is on a revenge mission. That might sound like a simple synopsis, but the show struggles to communicate this basic concept. For example, it's a 13-episode series, right? Well, over the first 3 episodes, we follow L who's milling around, meeting supporting characters from Blade Runner 2049, and getting into back alley brawls where she discovers she has impressive hand-to-hand skills. L is constantly having flashbacks and visions to some altercation in her past that took place in a desert compound. She then learns that she's a replicant who was bred to be hunted for sport by the wealthy elite and decides her only course of action is to take revenge on her creators. And then in episode 4, we just see the events she survived again. Even though all her memory flashbacks have been interlaced throughout the entire show, we literally don't need this to exist.
At least now, I know who I am. I know what I have to do. I'm going to kill them all.
There are also some meaningless subplots with a detective and some feeble attempts at world building. In a show where the main character has amnesia, you could expect to see some scenes over and over again. But episode 8 is just one of the detectives being interviewed about what she's been up to, while we watch several scenes we've already watched. How can a 13-episode series feature a clip show in the middle of it? It's laughable.
A few days earlier, a woman with a Black Lotus tattoo and inhuman strength kicked the crap out of the same gang.
The finale of the series sees Elle tracking down Neander Wallace Jr. Wanna guess what happens? There's a monologue about creation.
You seek answers that might give your life definition, meaning. That search is what makes us human.
We get some meaningless twist reveals, and then there's a fight scene. And the grand finale, Elle slashes Wallace's eyes with her signature katana. She's the reason he's blind throughout the entirety of Blade Runner 2049. So now you know Jared Leto's blindness backstory. Aren't you glad you sat through this fumbling mess of a show?
I'll be the last thing you ever see.
Blade Runner Black Lotus is a creative failure composed exclusively of half measures. The show has so many problems, they're almost innumerable. Let's start with the PS3 level graphics, stilted lip flap animation, and general blandness of the visuals of the show. Nothing about this show says Blade Runner. Then there's the awkward mocap. Why does every moment in this show look like the people are life-size marionettes? Crunchyroll has released loads of behind-the-scenes footage. The animation was definitely mocapped, and yet every walk cycle that's not a martial arts fight looks alien and otherworldly. The costumes don't feel right. They're not in dialogue with the iconic and boundary-pushing fashions of either Ridley Scott's classic or Denis Villeneuve's beloved sequel. The only one that feels remotely appropriate is Water Lily's lace-adorned white outfit. Then you also have the simple fact that Elle wasn't a fan favorite, both her characterization and Jessica Henwick's acting.
He knew so many things. He told me that the lotus represents purity.
Also, her costume is just short shorts, tights, and a cutesy jacket. This is not Blade Runner. None of the environments elements feel Blade Runner, and everything else in this could probably be forgiven if the show at least had an ounce of the personality that Scott and Villeneuve both brought to their respective projects. But it doesn't. Do they not have the money for lighting riggers? Do they not understand that atmosphere and tone are kind of more important than what's literally happening in a Blade Runner project? Maybe, maybe not, but the only thing that's certain is they fail at everything they attempt. Take, for example, this. Just a completely normal cage match boxing ring. This isn't a Blade Runner cage match. This is everything that's wrong with this project right here, encapsulated in brightly colored boxing gloves and clumsy lumbering animation.
What are you waiting for? Finish him!
Blade Runner Black Lotus was produced under a hybrid East meets West model. They had American screenwriters write all the scripts, recorded the English language voice cast, and then sent all of this to Japan. That's when Aramaki and Kamiyama set about trying to shepherd this production to completion. This is also undoubtedly where the original plans for the show got thrown out the window, and the mess we see today was born. It's so apparent that Kamiyama and Aramaki were just middlemen. Everyone is asleep at the wheel. In fact, even the US voice actors got notoriously bad reviews for their performances, which is odd, because some of them, like Jessica Henwick or Will Yun Lee, are fantastic actors in their own right. Farhad Abdi, who played Doc Badger in 2049, even shows up in Black Lotus. The man literally was nominated for an Oscar for Captain Phillips, and yet he sounds like this in Black Lotus.
It wasn't me. And Jay, don't talk like that in front of the customer.
The English language dub is so reviled that it's been almost entirely scrubbed from the internet. Any clips that have been left up on YouTube, they're the Japanese language ones, even though this show was intended to be an English language forward project.
And
In the most disturbing yet not in the least surprising turn of events, Adult Swim and Warner Brothers used the show as a tax write-off and stopped streaming it in September of 2022. That's right, unlike Batgirl, which was axed to save money before it got released, Blade Runner Black Lotus was put out. Everyone hated it, and then Warner's decided to just quietly take it out back and put it to sleep forever. Now, the only way to watch it is either by paying for Crunchyroll Premium or frequenting the various anime pirate sites. There's a reason Black Lotus has not been embraced by the fan base. You have two all-time classics and a creative failure. It's a tragedy that this show seems to have been such an unmitigated disaster, because the anime Blade Runner was a great idea.
It's too bad she won't live. But then again, who does?
The most unique thing about this project is that it collapsed without ever having said anything unique about the human soul. In a franchise that asks what it means to be more human than human, Blade Runner Black Lotus asks, what does it mean to not even try? And, well, that's all we have for this episode. What do you think? Is there an anime sequel or spin-off to an existing franchise that actually does work? Let us know in the comments below, and as always, please like, comment, and subscribe to Nerdstalgic for more videos just like this.